Okay, great. So I think you all should be able to see my screen where it says creating journals and digital portfolios and book creator. If you can do me a favor in the chat area, just say, yep, Monica, I can see your screen. I can hear you. All good. Virtual thumbs up, whatever feels. Great. Thank you, Tracy and Kristen and Nicole and all of that coming through. I appreciate that. So I am very excited to be with you today to talk about this topic of creating journals and digital portfolios in Book Creator. So we are going to go through some strategies. I'm going to share some Book Creator examples with you, and I hope that as we go through together today, you use that chat area or the Q&A box, whatever feels like a better space for you to put in questions, ideas, things that you want to make sure everyone else knows if you've created something great, as well as any questions that you have, because not only am I here leading the webinar today, but John from Book Creators here. If you got on a little early, you heard us catching up since we've been doing this Wednesday webinar series, and you can use that space to put in any questions. So this webinar is being recorded. We'll have it over on Book Creators YouTube channel. So the folks at Book Creator are so great about sharing everything there. So if you have to jump out for something, if you are playing double duty and emptying the dishwasher or folding laundry while you're watching this webinar, you'll have that recording to refer back to. So we're so glad that you're here today to jump in with us to not just getting an overview and learning about Book Creator, of course, but to also focus in on our topic of journaling and thinking about portfolios. If we haven't met before, my name is Monica Burns. I'm an ed tech and curriculum consultant. I'm a Book Creator ambassador. I'm here in New Jersey today, and I'm a former New York City public school teacher, so not too far from New York City where I am now. But if we haven't connected already, I love posting and sharing lots of favorites on social media. I did a quick Instagram update on my phone, reminding everyone about the webinar before jumping on the call with you today. So if you do follow along with me or with the folks at Book Creator, feel free to send us a DM and say hello, that you're a new follower and that you are joining in on the webinar today. Our goal today is to give you a quick overview of Book Creator, talk about setting up students for success in Book Creator when they are working remotely and when they are working in the classroom, talk about best practices for journals, best practices for portfolios, and although you are welcome to use that chat area and the Q&A area for questions throughout our time together, we will have some time carved out at the very end for questions. So that's a great time. If you're thinking of things and I don't answer your question as we go through, you can always just know that that's coming for you. But please don't hesitate to put in some questions in the chat area or in the Q&A spot as well. So that's a spot for you to put in any questions. But I'd love to hear a little bit from you before we jump in for today. How familiar are you with Book Creator? Have you used it a whole bunch, and this idea of journaling and portfolios is what brought you here today? Have you opened up Book Creator for the first time yesterday, knowing that this webinar was coming? So are you totally new? Are you a seasoned pro? Have you tried it out yourself? Have you tried it out with kids? I'd love to hear from you. And remember, if you want everyone to know kind of where you're at, you can use that drop down and switch it to all panelists and attendees. Wonderful. So there's some folks who are seasoned pro and some who are brand new, who've used it in sixth grade classrooms, have used it in lots of classrooms, have been to a couple webinars talking about Book Creator. So that's wonderful. I'm so glad to hear that there's a nice range of experiences of the 75 or so folks of you on the line live with us today. So please feel free to share any things that have worked well for you or any questions you have in the chat space while we go through. If you are totally new to Book Creator and I go through something a little fast, or you're like, Monica, wait, where was that? Feel free to ask a question. But also know that on Book Creator's YouTube channel, there are a bunch of getting started resources, and they have a really awesome help and support page, so that you can always reference back to that. And of course, this is being recorded. So if you get the link to this, I'll make sure to send it out to everyone as soon as it goes up. Just know you can always replay and pause. And John just put in the link to the support area within Book Creator in the chat. That's a really great resource to just bookmark in case you have specific questions. Now, there are some specific remote learning resources from Book Creator. They've put together a fantastic ebook full of activity ideas. Collaboration, which is normally a paid feature in Book Creator, now has a 90-day extended trial. So you can try that out if you haven't already. You'll also see in the chat area where John put a link to bookcreator.com/webinars. That's where you can find even more webinars and recordings that are related to remote learning. And today, when we jump into that, our quick overview, I'll also mention a workflow that might be useful for remote learning specifically. Of course, there's classroom connections, there's home learning connections to all the things we're going to talk about today. So Book Creator is an open-ended creation tool for iOS, meaning iPads, and the web, including Chromebooks. Today, we're going to look at Book Creator on the web. I'm on my MacBook, and I am going to go through it on the Chrome web browser, which will simulate what it looks like in the Chrome experience, but you could use any web browser to access Book Creator and play along with us today. Students and teachers can create and publish books. We're going to look at an awesome teacher example today that I'll make sure you have a link to explore. It is super simple to make interactive pages, so you can combine voice, text, video, images, and more. And I'm hoping that you'll get a chance to do all of those things while you are on the call with us today. So students of all ages can use Book Creator. If you've been with me on a webinar before this spring, you've probably heard me mention experiences working in elementary classrooms side by side with teachers and students using Book Creator, as well as using it with adult learners. So even though we're all working and learning from home right now, I often spend time in classrooms side by side with teachers and students, in addition to visiting lots of places and talking to them about best practices for technology integration. And it's something that students of all ages can use. You're going to see me today take you out and create a library for students. And that's a big part of the workflow that really is useful to think about while you are going through your plans for revisiting or extending any type of remote learning initiatives that you might be in the part of right now, or that you might be planning for the future. So we are going to talk about portfolios and journals today, two things that are starred on this list. But please know that Book Creator is open-ended, meaning it's a blank canvas, choose your own adventure type of situation. So you might have students create science reports, poetry books, step-by-step guides, comics, you name it. It is really a powerful and dynamic tool. Now, when we talk about using Book Creator outside of the classroom, and I make some remote learning connections today, you will want to go through the same process that I'm going to take you through in a moment. Setting up a teacher account, sharing the login protocols with families, and then you can check in on student books. You could do the same sort of workflow if you were sitting side by side with kids, right? You'd set up your teacher account, you would share the login protocols just with the kiddos that were in your classroom. And then you could check in on their books in real time. But of course, when we're thinking outside of the classroom, you may be looping in families or doing a little bit of an intro, like I'm doing with you today, to get your class ready to go. Now, of course, when we talk about learning at home, we know there are things that are important to consider around access and family priorities. And this is something that if you've been with me for a webinar here with Book Creator or with another group, you know that I bring this up before we jump into anything, because it's so important to keep our at a same kind of level setting when it comes to these big ideas. You want to make sure that you're positioning this resource in a way that is going to align with the goals that you have for the students you're working with. So maybe you are sharing this as an idea for them, or maybe this is built into expectations. Maybe you do have certain support for families built into some of your best practices. But of course, we know, we're in the midst of a public health and economic crisis, and we want to be sensitive and understanding to the fact that students may have different access than their classmates when they are working at home. So as we go into these pieces today, I'm going to get you started by talking about us getting into Book Creator. So we're going to go to app.bookcreator.com, and I encourage you to head over to app.bookcreator.com as well. I'm going to take you over there. We're going to get set up, and then we're going to make some journals together. So once you're signed in to app.bookcreator.com, you'll see this pop up on the screen. So there's the student sign in on the left, and then the tab for teacher sign in on the right. And this is what you are going to want to do, right? This is what you are going to want to have set up, right? You're going to want to be on the teacher side. And so once you're in there, you have access to your library. You can create a library and have students jump into that library. So if you are here, that you are inside of your library, you'll click on the invite code right here. You'll get a code that pops up, and that's what you will share with students or families. So when we talk about the workflow of getting everyone in, especially for journals, of course for portfolios, but especially for journals today, this is going to be something that you will want to think about. So let's take a look at Book Creator together. I want you to watch me set up a new library, because when we talk about journals first today, this is going to be a really important piece of getting the workflow set up. So let's go ahead, and I'm going to exit out of this full screen and jump back over here to my Chrome browser. Now, just so you know, I'm already logged in here. I'm going to go into an incognito window so that you can see. If I go to app.bookcreator.com, this is what I would see first. Remember, it's student friendly, so it's going to have student here first. You're going to want to hit teacher sign in, and then you're going to go in through Google single sign-in. That's what I use, Office 365, email, or Clever. So I'm going to go ahead and place this link into the chat area for you. This way you can go ahead and grab that link. You can jump right in, and you will be able to make sure that you are jumping in with us together. So I'm already signed in here, right? Because I popped over to my incognito window, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to create a library. So this is going to be for our journals today. I'm going to allow Google image search, which means that when kids make journals in this library, I want them to add pictures. They can edit their own books, right? So this is not a final project that I've turned off that privilege. This is going to be something where kids can edit their own books. I'm not sure if I want kids to read each other's books, though, and this will be something that you would have to make as a consideration and be open with your class about that. If you are having kids journal about something, they might be really comfortable sharing, right? Or they might not be comfortable sharing with their peers, and you'll want to be really transparent and open about that from the beginning of what that's going to look like. So you might say, the book that you make, I'll take a peek at it, but it's really your journal. Know that I can see it, but none of your classmates can see it, right? So you just want to have that conversation. And so if that was the case for journals, more likely than not, you won't have collaboration in journals. Collaboration is awesome, though. I don't want you to think that I'm just ignoring it, right? So if you are interested in collaboration, I did a whole webinar for Book Creator on this that I encourage you to take a peek at. And especially for journals, you might not want kids publishing their books online. So this is where, when we talk about journals and portfolios today, there'll be a little bit of a difference. So we're going to create a library here. And once I have that journals library, I would grab this invite code. This is what I would give to students, and they would use that code to join the library. As soon as they join in, their books would pop up here, and I would be able to take a peek at them. And you'll see why that's important when we start talking about this. So this is going to, when we talk about journals specifically, why that's important, you're going to want to be able to see everyone's in this library setup. So if you haven't already, I'm encouraging you, and I've dropped that link in there, and I'll place it in there again, so it's right there towards the bottom of your chat area, or the top, I guess, right? The newer stuff. Go ahead and sign in and create your own Book Creator account. If you haven't jumped in here before, you'll go through answering a couple questions as you set up your first library. If you have already jumped in, you can jump into the library that you've been using. If you have access to lots of libraries, you could always make a new one. But for us today, we are just going to play around with some features. So having a book on your screen would be great. Of course, if you'd rather sit back and watch, right, or you're just listening in and taking care of some other stuff, no worries. But I'd love for you to jump into your own book if that feels good for you today, because you might have some questions along the way that I'll be able to answer for you that might not have come up if you weren't pressing on all the buttons and trying things out. So as you get set up with app.bookcreator.com, let's talk a little bit about journals. And so journals can take many formats, and I'm going to give you some guidance today, but I don't want you to feel like I'm giving you a prescription, right? Like you have to do these things. You want to make this your own for your group of students. So journals might be something that students participate in using daily. It might be something that they use weekly. So you would have probably a set routine or suggestions for students for when they might put in a journal entry. You may give them a focus or a prompt, and we're going to talk about some prompts or focus areas today. You might give them a sentence starter, so something that you might want them to do in that manner. Or it might be something that is more open-ended. So in that case, if you're giving them something that's more open-ended, you might give a couple examples of the sort of things they might add onto a journal page, but it wouldn't be something like a set template or structure they would have to use. So journals can be casual, so pretty laid back in terms of what is in there, but they should have a clear purpose. So you don't necessarily need to have a checklist, like do your journals have all these things, especially if you're thinking about a more open-ended journal, but it should be purposeful, right? There should be a reason and a clear objective for bringing in journals to your work, even if it is something that might not be focused on a specific learning goal that you have on your kind of to-do list of your curriculum. It might be related to an SEL goal, which is just as important, right? So it can be something that might feel a little casual, but there should be that purpose behind it, right? So let's talk a little bit about this piece, and I want us to kind of go through and create a journal together. Then we're going to talk a little bit about what it might look like when you are creating a journal. And you don't need a code or anything today. We're going to work in our own libraries. So if you wanted to pull up that on your screen, pull up Book Creator on your screen, you can see what it looks like to kind of go through some of the same pieces that I will together today. So when we make our journal, there are things that kids can include. So there might be, of course, that set structure for entries. You might have lots of flexibility. You might bring in lots of multimedia, and it might be shared or private. And you saw me make some decisions about that as I set up our library in the first place. So let's go ahead and jump back in. Now, to create a journal, your kids would take the code that you've given them. They would jump inside of your library. So this is where you would see all of their books. And as soon as they're in here, they would click New Book, and they would create their journal. Now, you have some options here. Of course, you could do this with the plain pages, which is what I'm going to do today to model for you some of the types of media I might include on a page. But you could have kids choose to do this in more of a graphic novel or comic format, right? So if they are looking to represent their thinking that way, that is absolutely an option that you might consider. So I'm going to choose landscape, but you might have them do something that is more in a comic format as well. So let's go ahead and choose the square. I'm going to choose square today, and you'll see kind of why as we go through, because our pages will be organized really nicely here. And so I'm going to go over to the plus sign, and I'm going to go ahead and start adding some things to my page. Now, this is going to give me the option to add media, to snap pictures, to draw or annotate, to include text, and to record. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go ahead and add text here, and I'm going to put daily journal, and I'm going to make this text a little bit bigger and brighter because I'm going to want to make sure my cover really pops out. So I can click on the text. It's got to be highlighted in blue. Then I'm going to go to the inspector button. I'm going to make this nice and big. I'm going to change my font. So if kids are making a journal, you probably want them to have some flexibility here in terms of what they are doing so that it is something that they are interested and excited about and comfortable sharing in. And so you might have some conversations about that with students as you get them all kind of set up within here. So I'm going to go ahead now and change the color. I'm going to make this blue, and I can even center my text and choose a color for the background if I wanted to, right? So it's completely up to you and your students how this would set up. Now, of course, they can add a picture in the background. So I'm going to go to import, and I can choose a picture. So if they are doing a journal, and maybe this journal is really all about chronicling how they feel about their schoolwork. So if we're doing a remote learning connection, you'll see a COVID-19 connection with an example I'll share with you in a moment. But if we are doing something together where we are talking about, what it feels like to learn at home, or how I'm doing with something, or what's been a struggle or an obstacle, or if you imagine sharing prompts like that with your class, you could have them do something like that when they talk about kind of learning at home. So I'm going to put in here laptop, and I'm going to go ahead and search. If I wanted to, I could choose more of a clip art or a line drawing piece if I was looking for something really specific, or photo or something with the space, right? So kids have that option too. I'm going to go ahead and choose this one. It's from Pixabay, so I know that it's one that I'll have permission to use, of course. And look at this. I'm going to go ahead and add this right here. And because of the way that looks, I think I'm going to reposition, there we go, the text, so it kind of sneaks out right behind it. And this will be my daily journal, where I'm going to talk about what my experience is like learning at home. So now I'm going to go ahead and hit the arrow to create the next page. Now, after my cover, my pages will go side by side. So I'm going to go ahead and have my pages right side by side here. So remember, when I'm adding text to the page, I'm going to go to the plus sign, I'm going to add text, and I can type in my text right here. I could also use my voice and have that here. So remember, when we're talking about structuring things or giving kids a prompt or something open-ended, for this page, for this example, we're going to pretend like we have a prompt that we are working off of here. So you might ask students to add the prompt to the top of their page before they start writing their journal entry. And so I'm going to go ahead and put in here one thing that felt successful today. So that's going to be my prompt, and I'm going to go ahead and place this here. Remember, if you want to change your text, you want to click on it so that it has blue around it. Go to the inspector button, and here's where you can make all of your changes so that it looks just the way that you wanted to, including size and color and background and all of that. So I've got my one thing that felt successful today. And here I can go ahead and start adding in any of my responses, right? So in this case, I could add a recording. I could add text that I use voice to text, or I could even do a camera response, right? And record what I want that to look like. So let's take a look at these multimedia options for journaling, because you might find that as you are differentiating what this looks like for your group, you want to give them some options on how they add to their journal. So let's go to the camera here. I'm going to choose, you can see my whole office instead of my Zoom background behind me, nice and bright today. But I'm going to go to record video here, and I'm going to do a video journal entry. Today, one thing that felt really successful was that I was able to find a quiet place to read the first chapter of my new book. So I'll hit stop video. I can replay it if I want to, and I can use the video, and it will place it right here on my page. So you might give kids the option of doing all video responses, all audio, all text-based, right? Totally up to you. And if you haven't seen this before, remember, if I want to inspect an element, I have to click on it, and then I go to inspector. There is the ability to add captions. So I can go ahead and add captions. It'll generate for me automatically, or of course I could enter it manually, and it will pop up, and I can just jump right back in and I'll see this when it is good to go, right? So I have that as an option here. So I'm going to jump back in and we'll see when that pops up. Now, of course, your kids can make their journal entries really personal, and that's part of what you want here, right? Is for them to feel comfortable sharing. And so if I don't have anything that I've clicked on except for the back of the page here, I can go ahead and I can go to the inspector button and I can change the background. So I can make sure that it looks the way that I want it to look here, and have everything right here on the page. So this is an opportunity for students to really customize what it looks like, still working with a prompt if you want them to. You might have some norms for dating the page or something like that. So it's up to you how you'd want to set that up in terms of your expectations for your group of students. So if you're not in here already in Book Creator, I also encourage you to create a page, try maybe a video entry along with a prompt, like one thing that felt successful today. If you wanted to do something that wasn't video, you could go to the plus sign and you can choose something else. So you might have students with a prompt. So we'll go back to our text here. One thing that felt challenging today might be a prompt that you have on another day of the week. You could have students respond, of course, with text, with audio, or with video, or using the pen tool. So if we use the pen tool, they might draw a picture of that thing that felt hard for them today. So there's the audio auto draw feature here, or they can go ahead to emojis and they might type in something and find what was hard for them today. So I'm going to go ahead and type in pencil here. So I'm going to put this emoji right here, and then I'm going to hit done. So maybe the one thing that felt challenging today was finishing work, because maybe it was hard to focus today, or it was confusing, or I couldn't find the video that was posted in Google Classroom to help me out with this, right? So you could have an emoji, and then you could go ahead and hit the plus sign and record your voice next to it, or use the text tool and maybe use voice to text. So we'll say something like, "It was hard for me to finish my work today because I couldn't find the tutorial video in Google Classroom." And so we'll go ahead and hit done, and I can go ahead and add that right here. So this page, right, I can go and add images, I can add anything else that I want right here, but here you can see that I've used emojis to make my contribution on the page. So students can include lots of different things in their journals. There might be a set structure for entries and a set structure for how they respond. So prompts and response might be things that you have a structure or routine for, but you also might have lots of flexibility and say you have a page for today. You can fill it up with your feelings, with things that are working for you today. You might give kids a choice board of which prompt they can choose. So it's really up to you what that would look like. So you have an opportunity to customize that experience for your kids. Of course, I encourage you to explore the different types of multimedia and maybe make a recommendation for kids to use voice, use video, use text, whatever feels good for them. Give them some choice. And you can decide if you want that to be a shared or private type of journal. So remember, when I set up my journal here, when I set it up the first time, let's just jump out of here before I show you Karen's awesome thing. When I set up my journal, I was able to go, let's come back out here, or my journals library, I should say, right? I go to my settings, and remember when I started this, I chose that students cannot read each other's books. Well, you might decide that if it's okay with everyone and you've set that norm from the beginning, that kids can see each other's books. And so they'll see each book pop up in their library, and they can take a peek even though they can't edit what anyone else has done. So you have some options here to really customize that experience for your students. So let's go ahead and jump back over here. Now remember, I saw a question come in about emojis. If you want to find those emojis, you go to your plus sign, add with the pen tool, and then you'll be able to find emojis right there in addition to all the awesome pen tools. So Book Creator Ambassador Karen Bosch, she shared this on Facebook is where I first saw her share it. And I reached out to her and said, Karen, this is amazing. Can I please share this with everyone who's going to be joining us on the webinar? Talking about this piece. And she was so kind enough to say, yes, of course, you know, she was just ready to share and so lovely. If you don't follow her on Twitter already, I encourage you, and I'll put her Twitter handle back up there again. So I encourage you to follow along with her. This is the EPUB file I'm about to show you. So I put it there. She's tweeted this out and been kind enough to share it with everyone. So you can download it if you want to save it to your device and open it up. I have it downloaded already, and I'm just going to show you a couple screenshots, but you'll see it opens as an EPUB file because I'm on my MacBook here and I have, let me see here. I have this kind of ready to go. It'll pop up here in my downloads. I can open it up, right? Or I could click right here and it'll open up for me too. So you can see that it'll pop up in this kind of book space. So this is just a little kind of small. You can see me going through all the pages here and taking a look at them. So you have that link now too, but I want to just blow it up on the screen a little bit and take you through a couple pieces. So Karen created this COVID-19 journal template for her students so they would be able to open this up and go in and add to the pages. So she did create templates, she did create prompts. And so this might be something that you want to explore as well. And if kids do go through this, right, they can publish this as an EPUB, just like you saw me open up Karen's version. They can publish it online, or you can export it as a PDF and print it out. So I saw Heather asked a question about that. You could print it out, but remember PDFs, you can't play videos on it, right? Because it's just paper. So just something to be mindful of. If you know that's going to be how you export your project, you probably want to discourage kids from doing all the multimedia components because it won't be accessible, right, for anyone who's looking at it. So maybe they're just using text and pictures instead. So let's jump into this awesome example from Karen. You can see that she has pages side by side here, and she's giving kids instructions, she's giving them prompts to follow, and they are going to be able to add content to the page. So here she has a space for them to do like an all about me type of page with a selfie. She gives them really specific directions because she's not with them, right? So she's doing this for remote learning or learning at home. So she's not with them to give them that additional support. She's giving them very explicit directions right here in the page. She then has a space where kids can do an audio response. If this looks familiar to you, this microphone, it's an emoji, right? So you saw me add the emoji of the page with the pencil before. This is a microphone emoji. So you have this like built-in clip art right here using the emojis in Book Creator, which is just fantastic. You might use the comic outlines like you see Karen did here. So you can see that she has it set up like a T-chart, things I like about online school, things I don't like about online school. She even gave them a text box so they can type in to the space where she started to write. But you, of course, could give kids the option of using audio as well, right? So they might do a voice recording. And I go like this in a circle because it becomes a little circle on your page. So this gives you a sense of what she did, and I encourage you to bookmark that Dropbox link I just gave you so that you are able to find this. And of course, I put her Twitter handle up here on top of the screen in case you want to find her and follow along with her because she's just fabulous and a fellow book creator ambassador and Apple Distinguished Educator. So she does such amazing work and want to make sure I'm giving lots and lots of shout outs because what she's doing here is really special. And so you can see she has set up a clear template for kids. So if you are working with kids and you know that they need more structure, this is something that you might want to consider if you are going to do journaling with them this way. Now, another example from an awesome book creator creation. This, I believe, was shared in the Facebook group, the Book Creator Facebook group. If you're not part of the Book Creator Teachers Facebook group, I definitely encourage you to be, and I'll show you where to find that a little bit later. So this is one, and I'm going to go ahead and grab this link here. So I'm just going to copy it and paste it here in the chat area for you. So we're going to go ahead and put that here too, so you can find it, so you can see me go through. This has books for 6th through 8th graders made all around the same topic, right? So here they don't have a set template the way we looked at the other one. And so you have an opportunity to really, get creative with what this looks like. There's no one right way to do it, which I hope I'm emphasizing enough today, right, as we go through. So I'd love to give you a moment, if you haven't already, to try it out. So open up a page, maybe start a journal entry. I wouldn't be surprised if some of you already have started this. So if you have started one and you've been putting some things on the page, feel free to snap a picture if you want to. If you're not ready to publish it, just snap a picture with your device, maybe tweet it out or put it on Instagram and tag me, Class Tech Tips, and tag Book Creator at Book Creator app on Twitter. So that's something that you can always share out and just let us know where you are, on your journaling journey, if you will, whether it's something you're making as an exemplar for your students or something that you are going to just use for yourself, right, for your own journaling and reflection during this season. So you're welcome to continue going through, right? So continue going through and working on your journal. But I want to talk to you a little bit about portfolios, because portfolios are different than journals. And there may be some parallels to how you use Book Creator to create them both. But it's something that we want to make sure that you are able to kind of differentiate between and decide if you want to do both or just one. So a portfolio is a collection of artifacts really designed to demonstrate growth and mastery. It might be something that has an app smash component, and it's definitely more formal than a journal. So portfolios typically are culminating, meaning that they are at the end of something and they are gathering lots of different pieces of evidence of student work, right? That's where I use that term artifact. So it's a collection of artifacts that students have created over the course of the term, over the course of the school year, or even over the course of their school career. Sometimes portfolios are laser focused, really focused on something. So maybe it's not a portfolio of everything a child has done in 5th grade. Maybe it's something that just connects to all their math work. So it's their math portfolio, right? And so this is something that you can really think about creating for your group, or what this looks like, what components should be inside of it. A portfolio might also span several terms or span certain years, right? So I know I taught in a school where we were grades 3, 4, and 5. We were an upper elementary school building, and my 5th graders would apply to go to middle school. It's something that typically happens in New York City in the public school system. You have an option to go to your local school or apply to a different middle school in the city. And so they would pull their portfolios together, and I would have their work from 3rd and 4th grade, as well as all the work we created in 5th grade, and we would pull out evidence, right, of their work, of things they created over the course of all of those years. So same thing goes here. But what is really a value add when we talk about portfolios using Book Creator in this digital space is that there can be some audio components, video components, links to different pieces. So imagine a student is, I think back to my group of 5th graders. Imagine you have a student who is now looking and reviewing their 3rd and 4th grade work and picking out the best pieces from those years. We know there's typically a lot of growth that happens within that period of time. If they could put a link to something they made or snap a picture and put it on a Book Creator page, then they can add their voice onto there and they can talk about what it is that they have done. So really something special that you can do within this space. So definitely something more formal. And there is that app smash ability. So if you were with me for that favorite apps to use with Book Creator webinar I did 3 or 4 weeks ago, we talked about different apps that you can integrate with Book Creator. So that might be something that you want to think about too, right? If your kids are making some Google Slides presentations, they could link them onto a page in Book Creator, and they would have maybe a 10, 20, 30 page book that they've made by the end of the school year with a page that features one big project on it, so that they have multiple pieces over the course of the year to focus. So your students might include top 5 pieces of work, examples from different units or subject areas. They might include reflections and even have some goal setting in there too. So really something that you can make your own with your kids. So I want to show you how to create a portfolio page and what it might look like, including that kind of table of contents, so that if you have a lot of pieces inside, you can organize them really well. So let's jump back over here. I'm going to stay in this journal library just for the sake of keeping us moving. And we're going to go ahead and do landscape here. So I'm going to go to pages. So you see I've got my cover and it already has page 2 and 3. So I've got my cover here and I'm going to go ahead and skip to page 2. And at the top, I'm going to put in text and I'm going to go table of contents and I'm going to hit done. Now let's pretend that on page 3, so I'm going to go ahead and add text, that this is going to be a math project from April. So I'm going to say April math project. Not super like creative here, right? But I'm going to go ahead and just add it here for the sake of showing you the workflow for a portfolio. So if you go back here to pages, let's go to our table of contents. Remember, our April math project is on page 3. So I'm going to go to table of contents and I'm going to open this up and I'm going to say page 3, April math project. And look at what I can do right here. I can go ahead and I can highlight the page 3, go to link, and yeah, I could link it to like a Google Slides presentation, but I don't want to. I want it to jump to page 3 where I have this. So I'm gonna put in page 3 and save it. And now when I come back out here on my table of contents, this will link out to that page. So if I go into preview mode, right? I've got my cover of my portfolio, I've got my table of contents, and if I click here and go to page 3, it'll open up right here next to me. And this one is side by side, but it gives you a sense that this would let you jump to a different page, which is pretty awesome. So if you are doing portfolios with your group, you can think about including some of the pieces that I mentioned. Maybe it's a top 5, top 10, right? Depending on your time frame, examples from different units of subject areas. You can put a little audio reflection on each page or a video where a kid tells you the story behind that piece of work, and even some goal setting based on what they created. So really something special that you can do. So I'd love to hear from you in the chat area. This is also a good time to start plugging in any questions that you have, but I would love to give you some shout outs in the chat area. So if you do that drop down and make sure it says all panelists and attendees and everyone can see, but what could journaling or portfolios look like in your classroom? This rest of this year, into the summertime, into the fall, whether you're working remotely or face-to-face, what could you imagine journaling look like for your students? Go ahead and share a prompt you might want to use, a structure that comes to mind, an idea that you've been kind of tackling over the course of the webinar, and we'll give some shout outs in the chat area.
Monica, there is a question in here about, can you speak to the options for giving feedback in a student portfolio?
Awesome.
That one, and then also it said, what is the Dropbox account for the examples that you were showing? Is that the Google Drive link that you put in there?
Yeah, so great question. So last Wednesday, we did a whole presentation on student and peer feedback, and it's actually up right now on Book Creator's YouTube channel. So what I'll do is when I send out the resources for this one, I'm making myself a note because I say these things and then I want to make sure I do them. I'm going to include the feedback webinar link in the resources that I send out after this webinar. But if you're watching this on YouTube, because I'm recording this, right, just go back and look. It'll be the week before this one. So that will give you some strategies specifically for feedback. But of course, you could add audio on kids' pages, emojis. We went into a lot of detail. So you'll have a lot of options just based on the webinar there. So that's awesome. And that Drive link, so if you scroll back in the chat a little bit to the Drive link I shared with you, that will take you out to Karen's journal. And if you love it, feel free to follow her. I'm putting her Twitter handle in there and give her some shout out and virtual hugs on Twitter, and let her know that you are inspired by her project, because she's just such a resource to follow as well. So looks like some ideas are coming through on ways you might use journals and portfolios. So listing things that kids are struggling with, making sure that kids are talking about things from a daily perspective, physical activity journal, that's awesome. So things that might be more summer focused, bringing in a routine for all of your kids. So yeah, awesome. And I see some questions coming in too. And so we'll get to that in a moment. Before we wrap up, I just want to make sure that I give you a couple other pieces of information. So as I mentioned, they have an awesome Facebook group, the folks at Book Creator, and they have Twitter chats and a newsletter. And there's also all sorts of free ebooks that you can take a peek at too. So if you are already signed in to app.bookcreator.com, come back over to the three little dots and three little lines, the hamburger, and go to resources. And if you scroll down here, you'll see lots of books. And if you go to the very bottom, you'll see the Facebook group where you can join in the discussion. I'm actually going to copy this link and paste it in here. You can be like me. I don't post a lot on my personal Facebook page very often, but I am in a whole bunch of Facebook groups, and I love being part of discussions in there as well. So let's go ahead and take a look before we officially wrap up to see what other questions have come in. And if you have something else to share or a great idea, it's a good time to plug it in there so other people can see too. Okay. Yep, you could definitely create math journals and have kids chronicle their problem solving. You may want to have them snap a picture if they're doing it on scratch paper too, and include that piece. If you publish a book, you can, it's going to be online with a link. So I would treat that as something that everyone can see, just as a best practice for student privacy. If you want it offline, you could always download it as an EPUB as well. All right, great. Well, before I pull back the screen and finish us up for today, I just want you to know that the folks at Book Creator have awesome webinars that are still on the calendar. I'm a little biased, of course, because I've done, I think, 9 of them for Book Creator this spring, every Wednesday in April and May. So if you want to see the recordings or the replays, you can grab that off of Book Creator's YouTube channel. And I definitely encourage you to follow along or subscribe to their YouTube channel because they have such great things here. A couple other questions came through, so I'm going to pull back my screen and we'll just jump in, and John might jump into some of these too if there's anything that is specific. So let's see. Yeah, if you're using Seesaw, you can definitely publish a book and post it in Seesaw. That's a very popular workflow. You could publish it as an EPUB and upload the file. You could save it to your Google Drive and then do the Drive link, or you could publish it for a public link and have that as a Seesaw post. What's great about that is then your kids can do like a little audio intro as well.
Yep. I did see a question here from Saida about editing a downloaded version. So this gets a little dicey, Saida, depending on what you've got. So if you work online, you can certainly download the book as an EPUB. You can then edit it, but you can only edit it in Book Creator, the Book Creator app on the iPad. So it's not an EPUB that you can download it and just edit in some random text editor or something like that. So it has to be edited in Book Creator on the iPad app.
Great. Awesome.
Oh, Colette, the free version of Book Creator is available all the time. We always have the free version that allows you 40 books and up to 40 books, one library. The thing that we're giving away right now is the 90 days of collaboration. So that eventually will go away. But right now, grab your 90 days of collaboration and you can play with that one. But the free version of the tool itself will always remain.
Awesome. All right, well, I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording here.